Planning on retiring early? If so, you've got a problem in getting retirement income. I'm going to help you solve that problem 3 ways. That and more coming up. My name's Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. You've worked hard, you've saved up, you've saved aggressively, and you've done it. You've reached financial independence. You've reached the ability to be able to retire in your mid-50s. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Whether you're close to it or that's your goal, that's your hope, that's your plan, I hope you can achieve it, and I know you can. Work with your CFP, but here's the deal. If you do, you've got a problem. You've got a problem, and that is Social Security doesn't start until age 62, and that is if it makes sense for you to draw it right away. Oftentimes, especially if you're retiring early, means you've got other resources that you're using, and you should consider, at least do the math to see if you should delay Social Security and draw at your full retirement age, or maybe even draw it fully at age 70. Depends on your financial situation. A lot of issues. You've got to optimize Social Security. But if you're retiring early in your mid-50s, Social Security doesn't start for a while. Let's say that. And then the other problem is you can't draw from your 401k penalty-free until age 59 and a half, or I should say your retirement account. So this strains your ability to have retirement income if you're retiring early. How do you solve this? What are some ways that you can do so? Well, there's 3 typical ways that you solve and plan through this retirement income problem for early retirees. So let me work through those, and then I'll show you how to make the decision on which one is best for you. The first approach, and this one is the most common, but it also happens sort of naturally, and that is conscientiously you've built up some assets outside of your normal retirement accounts. Like I said, your 401k or 403b, IRA, Roth IRA, those types of accounts, you can draw them out penalty-free once you turn age 59 and a half. But if you're retiring early, unlikely that you're going to want to touch those dollars and pay the penalty. Well, what's one way to get around it is you build up some other assets outside of those 401ks. This is at odds with a wise tax shelter strategy. So I want to really impress here that while this is a common approach, it's not at odds with having a tax shelter strategy. In order to achieve, that the ability to retire early, you've got to be leveraging those tax shelters and do so early on. Maxing out your 401k, maxing out your Roth IRA, whatever your tax shelters are, contributing as much as you can, that's going to help you achieve financial independence. But so many people that are focused on retiring early and have the financial means to do so, max out those tax shelters, but then are consciously aware, well, I could build up, we could consume more, we could do other things, we could get in a bigger house, but I intentionally want to build up more assets in a non-retirement account that I can use that has more flexibility. I can use at any time and not have a tax penalty. Further, folks that have the means to retire early maybe have received an inheritance, and those dollars might not be in tax shelters, and therefore help you fund or seed or contribute to a non-IRA account that can be used for early retirement income. Or there's been, maybe you were an owner in your company where in your employer, you had restricted stock, or you were a part owner, something like that, and you've been able to build up conscientiously an account that's not a tax shelter. Then the strategy is doing the math, working with your CFP to say, okay, how do we optimize Social Security? What's our long-term retirement plan? But usually that retirement income game plan has 2 stages to it. One, all right, how much from the time you retire until age 59 and a half, or until you turn on Social Security, how much money are you going to need? And you do the math to make sure this non-IRA account, whether it's an individual account, a joint account, a trust account, something like that, does that have enough resources to get you from retirement until age 59 and a half, or until age Social Security? And you sort of eat through or you consume those assets, those resources, before you get to the second stage of retirement income, which is more sustainable for the next 2 to 3 decades and for the rest of retirement. So approach number one to solving the retirement income problem for retiring early is building up conscientiously a non-tax sheltered account, an account that you can have access to without an age restriction. The second approach to either complement the first, or if you don't have that non-IRA account, and that is to access your 401k, your employer's 401k, before age 59 and a half. And you might be thinking, wait a second, I thought you said doing so is going to cause me to pay a 10% penalty. I did, but there's a unique exception many people aren't aware of, and that is for your employer, if you retire in the year you turn age 55 or after that, you can access your 401k dollars out of your 401k, not an IRA or old 401k, out of your 401k. You can access those dollars, pay the tax, but avoid the 10% penalty. Is there a requirement that you've got to take out a minimum amount or you can't take out too much? No, the only requirement is that you left employment in the year that you turn age 55 or after. And so this is why I said it can't be an old 401k, because if you had an old 401k, you terminated with that company, with that employer prior to turning age 55. So it's got to be your current employer where you worked all the way up until your 56th birthday, and then you retired. Well, those dollars, that 401k, that would be accessible to you to draw out of, pay the tax, but avoid a 10% penalty. If you are let go or you choose to retire when you're 54, but you're turning 55 later that calendar year, you also are covered under this exception. You don't officially need to be age 55, but you need to be turning 55 that calendar year. One rough scenario, challenging scenario, and we were taking approach number one anyway, but had an individual that their job was relocated at the end of a calendar year when they were 54, and they chose to not relocate their family, so they stayed put. And he transitioned into retirement. He was 54, but this transition occurred in December, and he didn't turn 55 until the next year, the next spring. He didn't qualify. Had that termination occurred in January and he was turning 55 later in the spring, then the 401k would have been an option and avoided that penalty. Therefore, the planning strategy, I told you I was going to give you the ideas and then how to plan through it, is calculate, well, how much money do I think I'm going to need between retiring and turning age 59 and a half, and then round up or take a thicker slice and leave that in your 401k when you retire. The dollars above and beyond that you're not going to need. It's not short-term money. You won't need this for a long time. Those are the dollars that you roll out and transition into an IRA or to a Roth IRA so that you've got more investment choices, more flexibility with those dollars. Just the dollars that you think you're going to need from the time you retire until reaching age 59 and a half. Once you retire, leave those dollars, consider leaving those dollars, if this is your approach, in your 401k. All right, and then the final approach, the third approach to solving the retirement income problem if you retire early, is something called the 72T exception, substantially equal periodic payments, or SEPP. What is this? Well, this is a rule that the IRS has set up where under Rule 72, kind of Part T, 72-T, there's a list of all of the retirement withdrawals exceptions to the 10% early withdrawal rule. And so it says there's an exception for death or disability, and it lists out all the exceptions. Well, a substantially equal periodic payment, or SEPP, is one of those exceptions to that 10% rule. Well, how does it work? Well, from your IRA, from your retirement account, you follow certain protocols, you follow certain procedures, and you solemnly swear to you agree to withdraw a certain amount, pre-calculated amount, from your retirement account every single year, rain or shine. Investments do well, your investment account does terrible, doesn't matter. You've still got to take this amount out for at least 5 years or until you turn age 59 and a half, whichever is longer. So if you retire at 53, you're going to have to do this every single year until 59 and a half. If you decide, now I'm going to retire at 57 and I need to do this approach, then you've got to do this for at least 5 years, even into your 60s, right? Past 59 and a half. You, based on your age and so on, and you do a calculation. The IRS allows you to do a required minimum distribution, an amortization, or an annuitization calculation, and you determine which of those makes the most sense for you, and then that determines how much you need to withdraw out of your IRA each and every year, and you make that withdrawal. That withdrawal is taxable, but it avoids the 10% penalty. The challenge with this, there's red tape, it's a little complicated. You might not be able to get the amount of income out that you need. So that's the second. And then the third is it's very inflexible. Like I said, rain or shine, you've got to do this. And early in my career, there were some folks that did this, and then all of a sudden we had the great financial crisis and accounts dropped significantly, and they didn't want to draw dollars out because they had to sell shares at these very low prices, but they were obligated to. If you cancel the plan or you don't fulfill those withdrawals, then all of the dollars that you avoided the penalty on are then penalized. So this one is an option, but I wouldn't consider it a first choice, but it is an option. The planning approach here is, well, how much of your IRA do you need to do a substantially equal periodic payment on? Have one IRA set aside and pull your required distributions or whatever from that account. The rest of your dollars move to a separate IRA and manage those accordingly. Well, there you have it. Those are 3 strategies or 3 different approaches that you can take to solve the retirement income problem if you're going to retire early. In each of those scenarios, you've got to be working with a certified financial planner, looking at your present financial position. We've talked about before, if you're retiring early, that means you're retiring before Medicare. You've got to have a plan for your protection plan, your health insurance. Tax planning is an obvious part of this, your investment strategy, retirement planning, confirming that you can retire early and that it's a sound plan, has the right confidence rate. And you've got to look at your estate plan, your legacy plan as well. So you've got to look at all 6 areas of your financial life when you're going to execute this, and that will help you determine which of these 3 strategies or a combination thereof is most appropriate for you. So work with your certified financial planner on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, contact one of my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or send us an email, info@korhorn.com. All right, there you have it. Go on and take your next wise step in your financial life.